everyone should be able to see effectively Sixclear.com, and the easiest way to stay in the loop on all future Lunch and Learn sessions is to simply hover over Login and click the Sign Up Now link here. That Sign Up Now link will get you an account at Sixclear.com. There are some other cool things underneath the login, including our training stuff, but that will get you on the list so that you receive all future updates. So that said, Andre, thank you again for being a very special guest in our first Lunch and Learn session here. I'll pass presenter rights to you now, and we're looking forward to your presentation on the RTI DDS Toolkit.
Okay, thank you, Nassim.
Okay, you should have presenter rights shortly, and feel free to take it away.
Hey, can you see my screen? Actually, let's go to
yes, I can.
Okay, great. So, as Nassim said, I'm with RTI, and we provide the RTI DDS Toolkit for LabVIEW, which actually got the Product of the Year award this year at NI Week from the NI Tools Network, which we are pretty proud of. I'm the Field Application Engineer for RTI, and I will have a few slides to actually introduce the toolkit, and then I'll give a demo. If you have any questions, feel free to ask questions. I guess the easiest way is probably to send them through the chat, since you're all on mute, but feel free to send it to the chat. I'll try to monitor it, and if I see any questions pop up, I'll try to address them as they come up.
Yeah, Andre, thank you for that note. For all those who are listening, that is the best way, and we'll be actively monitoring the chat in the background so that all questions can be reflected here to everyone. And yeah, we'll ask them impromptu then. So thanks very much.
Okay, so when would you use the toolkit? So pretty much any time you have to have a need to communicate between different LabVIEW applications or between LabVIEW and non-LabVIEW applications. As systems are getting bigger, you don't always have the opportunity to put everything into one application or into one VI. So it gets more and more distributed systems, or you have the need of just collecting your data, maybe do some little pre-processing, and then handing them off to an additional node for storage or for additional processing, and so on. So anytime you basically need to communicate outside your VI, you can use the RTI DDS Toolkit. I know NI provides some solutions as well, like one of them is shared variables. I assume most of you are probably familiar with shared variables. So the difference that the RTI DDS Toolkit has over the shared variable engine is it doesn't require a separate engine or service to run. It's just between the VIs. Whatever is in your VI is all you need for that communication, and it also allows you to actually communicate with non-LabVIEW applications. So if you have a database application that needs to store information, if you write a cool application for an Android tablet to control whatever you're doing, so you can have those interfaces, those communications done using the RTI DDS Toolkit. The next slide actually shows a little bit how it works. So it's in the LabVIEW, it's a block, function blocks that you're using. If you're outside LabVIEW, we have actually APIs for C, C++, .NET, we have Java, we also have Ada, we also have an implementation with Simulink, MATLAB, Simulink. So you can actually use those libraries in any applications with those APIs, and that basically allows you to do the communication. Communication can be done over a local area network, wide area network, or shared memory, so it works seamlessly. It's built standard called the Data Distribution Services Standard, which is managed by the OMG, by the Object Management Group. So it's not a proprietary solution that we use to do the communication like the shared variable engine is. It's really a standard, and as long as you have an implementation, a library that conforms with the DDS standard, you will actually be able to communicate between those applications and whatever applications you have. We also have a few tools and adapters around it that actually allows you to interface with other technologies and other protocols. And I will go into this a little bit during the demo. It's a publish-subscribe architecture. So what this means is if you have data to share, you're basically sending it out, publishing it out, and whoever subscribes to it will get a copy of that information. There's an automatic discovery process. You don't have to actually configure in your application or in your VI where you're sending it to and who all needs that information. Whoever is interested in that information can just connect to the network and say that this is the information they're interested in, and they will get a copy. So it's a lot of kind of like a plug-and-play networking framework, and you'll see more of that during the demo. Some of the key features of the plugin, it's extremely scalable. We have applications with 10,000 of data points that are communicating with each other. We can have hundreds and thousands of applications, a lot of messages. It's really high performance as far as latency and throughput, because as I mentioned earlier, we don't require a separate service to run. It's all peer-to-peer, so no engine, centralized engine service or daemon that needs to be configured. It automatically discovers each other really nicely if you're within the same subnet. If you're going across commands, there's a little bit of configuration that needs to be done, but it's actually pretty easy and simple. The fact that we don't have a centralized engine so means that there's no single point of failure, but it's really a peer-to-peer communication. So if one of your application fails, then all the other ones can still communicate with each other. We also have additional features that provide security. The simplest way is to just encrypt the channel using TLS, SSL encryption, but the DDS standard actually recently adopted an extension for security, which allows you to do authentication on message level and also allows to do the encryption very flexible on certain messages may get encrypted, some may not get encrypted, and all on the level of encryption you're going to have. So one of the other advantages here is that if you have multiple subscribers, DDS Toolkit can actually use multicast, UDP multicast for the communication. So you're really saving on bandwidth at that point, and the security standard actually builds on that as well, so that you can do security over UDP multicast, which is a really cool feature if you have a lot of subscribers for the same information. So as I said, it really works for mixed systems. We support a lot of different programming languages besides LabVIEW that can communicate with each other. We run on different operating systems, on different processors. We can use different transport types, shared memory, and UDP v4 and v6, including multicast, is what's in there by default. But we can also use TCP transport. We run over wireless, and we also have some special plugins for low bandwidth links if you plan on going over satellite links, or even if you use wireless, if you use a 4G network where you get billed by every byte that you're sending, it might make sense to actually add that plugin in order to reduce the amount of traffic you're sending over the link by compressing it or removing some of the redundant header information, etc. So for the toolkit for LabVIEW, we actually have some PubSub VIs that are in there that you can basically easily drag and drop into your VI. We have it available for Windows. We also have it for Linux and LabVIEW real-time for the Serios. For the 9068 today, it's available. We're working on additional ones to support as well. I mean, the other thing on the Serio, I'm sure you're aware of that. You don't necessarily have to use our toolkit with LabVIEW. You can actually build native C and C++ applications on those hardware pieces as well, if you wanted to. The one thing about the Windows one, you can install it through the package manager, and the Windows toolkit is actually available for free. You can get a license there, and then if you go to the buying checkout process, the price for it is $0. The real-time one, the one for the Serio, there is a charge for that one, and the information on that is on the NI Tools Network, or you can contact us as well for information on that. But just to get started with it and to understand how it works and see the power of it, I think I would recommend download the Windows one, install it, and use it, look at the examples, and you will see it's a really powerful tool. It's really simple and quick to use. It hides a lot of the DDS complexities if you're looking at the DDS standard and the APIs that are defined in the standard. Actually, that's another thing that I like about the data distribution services standard, that it actually defines the APIs for C, C++, and Java. And it also defines the wire protocol. So there is really both sides of the communication library that have defined APIs, and that allows for interoperability between different vendors. So if you would look at the standard and the APIs that are defined in there, we actually see there's a lot of options and complexity in there. So with the LabVIEW API, we actually hide that complexity and make it very easy to use. It's still configurable, and configuration can be done to a configuration file. That's an XML file. I already said it's free on Windows. Find it in your VI package manager. Go to the NI Tools Network and look for it. And we have the support for the Serios here as well. So here is a quick example on how it would look in your VI. So you're basically either publishing data or subscribing the data. So what you would do is you first create your subscriber or your publisher, depending on what you're doing. Then you have a block that either reads or sends data out, and then you can process your data, and at the end you delete it. So that's pretty much all you need, is those 3 function blocks for some simple publish subscribe functionality. So let's jump in there and start off with the demo, unless anybody has some questions on the overview so far. I haven't seen anything come in yet on the chat, so either everybody is asleep or everybody understands what I was saying.
I think you're just presenting so clearly that there are no questions. Yeah, I bumped everyone on the chat as well, but so far so good. Yeah.
Okay, so what I have here is I just created an empty VI. Here there's nothing in here yet. So I'm going to start off with a simple publisher. And once you have the DDS Toolkit installed, if you go to your functions menu and you go to the data communication, you will see the RTI DDS Toolkit, which I already have pinned up here. So we have either a simple writer and reader. So let's start off with a writer. So what I need is a create function, as I said before. I will need the write function to write the information out, and I need the release function. So those are the three function blocks that I need. And I can actually change the type here of what I want to put. So I just make them right now a double. Those are the basic types that it supports for the simple one. And here a double too. So then we have, and let's link the errors together. And we have the reference that we link together as well. Okay, so then here we have a few inputs. The first one is, and I just create a constant here, is called the domain ID. And by default, it sets it to 0. The domain ID is an identifier of the global data space or the network of applications that you have that you want to communicate with each other. If you select a different domain ID, it will be separate from each other and they will not discover and know of each other. Or there'll be more details on it. With the UDP transport, a different domain ID means a separate set of ports. So communication will be completely separate and they won't know of each other, which is actually pretty good if you have multiple people on the same network doing different applications using DDS. If they all would use the same domain, they would all discover each other and possibly interfere with each other. So that's why, for example, at RTI, each of us has its own assigned domain. So when we do some experimenting, we don't interfere with somebody else. Then the next one is the topic name, which is basically the name of, you want to give the message that you send across. I'll leave it the default here too. Data type, you don't have to actually really worry about this with the simple one. So that's all we need to configure it. Then we need some data to be sent out. Let me go here and create a control. Just do a knob here. So use the knob to send the data out. Here we send out. And now we're going to create a loop around it. We're going to do this. So we roll the loop condition, stop it, and let's add a time here. And I create here a control as well, so we can create the delay on how often we want to send it. So that's pretty much all you need for a simple publisher. So let me go here and add some delay. Let's do 500 milliseconds. Okay, so now I start this, and this is now running, and it's every 500 milliseconds or twice a second, it publishes out whatever the value is of this knob here. Now, I don't have a subscriber yet, so how do I know it's working? So we have some tools around it. If I bring up a command prompt here, one of the tools we have is a command line tool. Simple one that I sometimes use is the SPY. Oops. RTI DDS SPY. So you'll actually see that it sends out information here on a periodic basis on my topic. I had something else running in the background. That's what you didn't interference there. So you see my topic being sent every now and then, and I could even stop this here and give it the option of print sample. So you actually see what the value is. So if I actually, just down here. So if I move my knob around here, you should see that the value changes. And if I update my rate here, if I make this a little bit more often, you will see that it goes a little bit faster. But this is basically now out on the network, and anybody can subscribe to it. So let's make this lower again so we don't have. Now let's go and build a subscriber. Make this a little bit smaller here. This is my publisher here. So let's do a new VI. And we do the same thing over here. We do a reader. Same thing. The create function, the read function, and the release function. Data type here. Type this double. Well, sending out double. Putting them together. That was the wrong one. Object reference. Okay. So we have the same thing here. We have to configure. We create a constant. We're going for domain ID 0. We're going to topic name. So they actually have to match up. So if I would create a subscriber here and I would create it in a different domain. I said before there wouldn't be network communication. If I give it a different topic name, that would actually be a different message or ID that there's publishing and subscribing to, so there wouldn't be a match and it wouldn't receive it. So that way you can actually publish multiple messages out of your VI. Type here. So then on the read, we actually have a few inputs here. We have a query condition, and for now I just create a control here so we can play with this. And only new sample, I create a control for this one too, so we see what it is. Then I need something to display my stuff for, and I do an indication. Let's do a tank here. So the data that I'm getting in goes into the tank. Okay, and then for the sample info, I just create an indicator so we see what all that information is. Let's do the while loop around it. Here. Control here. And we add the timing. I'm doing. This one I just hard coded for now. Create a constant for 100 milliseconds. So this is just reading. Okay, let's see if we get this running. Hopefully it will work. So I can make this smaller here. Okay. So let's get running. What happens? Now you see it gets data in, and we also see something here. The sample state changing here a little bit. I'll explain this in a second here what's going on. But you basically get the data in that I'm publishing. So if I increase it here, we're close to or around 8. So you see this one went up. You get a timestamp every time data is received, and you get an indication if this is valid data or not. So the interesting thing what's happening here is I'm publishing at 500 milliseconds, but I read at 100 milliseconds. So I'm reading way more often than I get new information in. And that's what you see here in the sample info. This one here either says not read or read. So that means I either got new data in, this is the latest value, or I got the old data again. So that's basically what happens if you go into your read. The way it is set up right now, it will give you the data that it has, and it will tell you this is new data that you haven't seen before, or I haven't gotten anything in, so I just give you the old data. In some cases, that's good enough. So if you want to plot like a graph, if there's no new information, it just plot the old value again. But with this one here, where it says only new samples, you can actually control how you want this behavior to be. You could change it to basically say, if there's no new sample, then just tell me that there's no valid data. I don't have anything for you. In that case, it would actually come back, and the valid data flag would be 0 if there's no, or not valid if there's no new data available. So you can control the behavior on how you want to receive data. If there's nothing new, then I want to just have the old one, and it will still tell you that this is actually data that you've seen before. It's old data, or I just want to come back and say, I don't have anything for you. So you can control this with this flag here. So let's go to read it all, and we can make this one here a little bit faster. So we have always new data. Publish it at the same speed. So the other interesting thing is that query condition here is, in some cases, you really don't care about all the values. You only want it if a certain condition is met. So I can say here, I only want it if my value, actually I'm not sure if it's case sensitive or not, let's say it's greater than 4. That's all I want. So right now I'm getting updates. So if I turn my knob down here and close, if I go below 4, you will see I don't get valid data anymore, and it doesn't get updated. If I go over 4 again, now I get data again. It updates. And I can even change this at runtime. I can say, now I just want it if it's over 2. And now if I'm getting over 2, so I get it. If I go below it, I won't get updates. So I can change my query condition at runtime. And the nice thing about the query conditions is this information is actually being sent back to the publisher. So the publisher is not even going to send out the information if nobody is interested in it. So if the filtering isn't met in this case, nothing is sent to the subscriber. I still, on my little spy function here, I will still see the data, because spy doesn't filter. It shows you everything that's being published out.
Andre, quick question for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there documentation that we may find on the web for the syntax that the query condition supports?
Yes, it's in the manual. So if you're, let's see, under help, I think you see the RTI DDS Toolkit for LabVIEW. Open the Getting Started guide. That one has some information in there on how it works. So it's basically is an SQL-like conditions, so you can actually even have multiple conditions in there. I could say value greater 2 and value less than 4 or something like this.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Another thing we have, if you actually get the RTI DDS Professional install, which is all the tools and the libraries for the other programming languages, we have some tools around it. We have one particular like, which is our administration console. That actually shows you who all is out there, what all topics are out there. So you will see I have my topic here, and I have a whole bunch of things going on here. So you'll see my topic. There is a process 7100 that has a publisher and a subscriber, and this is actually the LabVIEW VIs. They're running in the same process. They're actually sharing resources, so that's why you see the publish and the subscriber as one. I have the SPY. I think this is the SPY. Yeah, this is SPY that's running. This is the admin console, which is actually has a data visualization feature, which I must have turned on before once and then remembered it, so that's why it's coming up. And then I have something else that's currently running on my system. So I have the view here on who all is connected to it, and I think that's another advantage over the shared variables, because there you don't always have a good view in what's going on. And I also have down here, I have a system view. If I have multiple systems that are being connected, I would actually see every single host name and what all processes are running on it. So right now I just have my laptop that shows up twice here with the admin console and all the other applications. I can click on one of them and then I will see what all I'm running there. So I'm running a publisher for my topic and a subscriber for my topic. That's basically the NI VIs that are running in the back here. The other thing that I didn't mention before is with DDS, you can also attach attributes to your communication channel. So, like, does this communication need to be reliable or best effort? Do I want historical data? So I can set it up so that when I come up as the subscriber, I can get the last 5 or 10 or 100 or however many you want messages that were sent before I started. I can add time-based filter, which in LabVIEW I can do with the while loop, but I could actually even add a filter and say only give me the data every second, even if the publisher might publish the data 20 times a second. I don't need it that often. I want it downsampled, so the communication would take care of this. You can attach lifespan to your topic. Basically, when you're publishing it out, you can say this is only valid for 2 seconds. After that time, just delete all the instances that are in the system of this particular message. Because even if somebody reads it after 2 seconds, doesn't really make sense. So I don't need it. So those are things that you can apply to it. And if I click actually on the my topic here, you will see some of those settings here. So I right now have interesting here, national lifespan. That's basically how long it would be valid, that data. Reliability, so I have reliable. The publisher can publish it reliable. All this, and on the subscriber, let's see what I have here for reliability. I'm just using the default, so it's best effort. So that's the other thing, is they don't have to be exactly the same. Like as a publisher, I can say I can publish my data reliable, but then as a subscriber, I can say I don't need it reliable, best effort is fine. And then the publisher will basically downgrade to best effort for that connection. And at the same time, I could actually bring in another connection and have that connection being reliable too. The other thing here, down here, I will see the DDS, the data type. Right now, it's just a double with the value in there, because I use the basic types. The other thing I have is the data visualization. So let me delete all this stuff here. So I could actually, on my topic, I could say I want a time chart and plot on my topic on that value. Then I can do all the colors and how I want it to look. So now it would plot me a time chart down here, and if I turn the knob here, you will actually see what the values are that's being published out. Well, so if you want to see what's going on in your system, this is a pretty good tool to give you an overview. Who all is there, what is going on. Okay, I'll pause it just for a second to see if there are any questions on the simple application.
Yeah, Andre, I'll jump in again here. This is Jassim, and another question. Is there an example or sort of case study that you could point us to, or maybe even speak to right here in context for where maybe some of these admin tools proved useful, either in debugging or in sort of analyzing a system, and then anything else you may want to say to color sort of an application of this stuff. This is very cool. Any thoughts there?
Yeah. So the main use for me for this tool is if I have applications and they don't seem to communicate. Why are they not communicating? And let's try to see if I can do this right now. Since I only have two here, if I would actually bring in another application that has a mismatch or in the configuration so that the communication wouldn't happen, you would actually see it in the graph here. You would see it in red, and you could do the match analysis down here, and it would exactly tell you what the mismatch is in configuration or data type and why the communication isn't happening. I can probably, with the next example, I can probably do a little bit more on debugging and how to use this tool. But the other thing is also really interesting with this tool is, I said, I can get the type information. So if I have an application already out there and I want to see what that application actually does or what the information is that application publishes, if security isn't turned on, I can actually go there and say my topic, and I see, oh, this actually puts out the double. So I can actually go and create a reader or a VI that reads that information on the fly. I mean, the other interesting thing is the fact that that you can get the data type as part of the discovery. You can write generic tool for recording or routing to different networks. We can make them generic because they can learn about the data types. So, and we have some kind of those tools that I'm going to show a little bit later. Does this kind of answer your question?
Yeah, this is adding some perspective. This is very cool. Thank you.
Okay. So as I said, this is kind of like a simple example, but most of the time you probably have to share more than just one, a double or a string or something like this. So you want to exchange a little bit more complex information. So we can do that too. So if I start here in UVI again, we have something that is called complex type. And there we can do read and write. And we have the simple one that simplifies the configuration a little bit. And we have the advanced one. And this is a template, and you can just drag it in there, and it pretty much has everything you need to send out a complex type. Complex type in this case is a cluster of information. So the only thing that this template doesn't have is the cluster. So in this case, I can basically go to my front panel here and say select the control. And what I'm going to use here is the DDS shape type. Shape type is a type that we use for most of our demos and examples. I plug this in here, and you will see it basically has a color, an X and Y, and the shape size. So that's all what the shape type has. So I have this here. I can change this to control. So what I basically need on my create function here, I need to wire in what type I have. This is what this comment here tells you. Connect to the cluster or enum or whatever structure you want to send out. So I'll delete this here. So I'm actually using this type here. So I wire this one into my data type. And now in the send function, all I have to do is basically create that data type here to send out. Here, so what I'm going to do is do my cluster here, and I do bundle by name. So I need to give it the input cluster, which is the shapes type. It has all those 4 attributes. So this is what I'm writing out here as data. For the color, let's create a control here. And then for the other ones, I can actually just slide. There's a couple slides here. Let me go back here. So I'll take this one here. Favorite properties. So I know from the cluster, this is just an integer. So I change just an integer. Oh, one more thing that I need to change. Scale. Make it 0 to 250. That's a good way. Size for this one. Let me put this somewhere in here so I can connect this. So this is going to the X. And where's the other slide here? Change the property here too. Make the data type 32. To scale. This up to the Y. And then the last one here. Change. Scale is probably 100 is good for the size. Okay. This one here I'm going to hook up to the size. So now I have all the stuff that I need to actually publish out a little more complex information here. And the same here is on the topic name. Now I need to give this a different name, because if I call this my topic as well, then it will actually assume that the simple one that I did before and this one is the same information, but it has a different structure assigned to it. So I would get an error. They wouldn't be able to communicate with each other. I call this square, and we'll see in a little bit why I call this square. The type name That's basically the cluster name that I have, which is shape type. You can give it, with DDS, you can actually identify some fields as key fields. What this means is that if the key field has a different value, or DDS, it becomes a different instance. So, for example, if I have temperature information, I have multiple temperature sensors, I don't necessarily want to create a reader for every sensor. I just want to create one that says temperature, a reader for temperature information, and the type I can actually give it a sensor ID and make this the key. So every update to a different sensor ID would actually be treated in DDS as a different instance, and it would have its own receive queue, and would also have some different properties assigned to it as far as the reliability and the durability and those quality of service settings that I was talking about before. So I know, because I have a C application, actually a Java application that I've already written that is based on the shape type, and I know that the color is actually the key that we use. So color here. And then this here, the domain participant QS and data writer QS, is basically the configuration file, or the configuration out of a configuration file or set of files that I want to use. And I can create my own file, and there are some built-in quality of service configurations that are available. If you look at the Getting Started guide, it shows you what the quality of services are that's available. It also shows you how you can actually create your own settings and use those profiles. It always consists of a library name and a profile name, and you can have different profiles for different communication channels. And basically, the profile is saying, is this reliable? Is this best effort? Do I need to have some time-based filtering, etc.? Do I need historical data? That's the kind of configuration you will put into the file. There is a default file that comes with the install of the toolkit. If I actually try to remember where it is, I go to my install. Here's the library. So here you basically see there's the library name and the profile, and that's where it basically sets some of the information. So I want to have the last value all the time here, and some other thing here. There's different profiles in here. So that's kind of the one that comes by default. But as I said, you can create your own one and point to that one. So for this one here, I use one of the built-in ones that we have that's actually in that file. And I know I need the LabVIEW. I need it from the LabVIEW library, and the profile I'm using is one that doesn't send type code. And both of them are going to be the same. And for this one, I also do a new domain. Like this. Okay, so this is the configuration, and then I can already put something for the color in. I can say yellow. I just put something here so they're not 0 to get started with. And I think that's all I need here, and I can get started publishing this out. This should actually be running. You'll see in the background here, it already starts displaying the shape type as well as the double type that's going out. And the reason why I chose shape type is because we have a shapes demo application, this one here, And if I subscribe to squares here, you will see my yellow square here, and I can control. Oops. Make sure this one is on the top somewhere. Maybe I'll go over this. Put it over here. So if I move my slider around, you will see this moving around up and down, and I can change the size on it as well. So if you look at this, right now this is not a LabVIEW application. This is just a native application. I think it's written in Java, just to wrap around our libraries and displaying whatever information it gets. And also the way the default subscription works, it actually keeps a history of 6, so that's why you see multiple shapes up there when I slide it around. And the other thing is if I change the color here, if I change the color to red, now I have a red one. See, I still have the last instance of the yellow one because the color is what I call the key, so it's a different instance. So as a subscriber, I know it's a different instance of that shape type of that square, so it keeps the last information of the yellow one. Because that's, I said, it keeps a separate queue for different instances. So that's what the key field actually means. I can move this nicely around here. And if I go back to the admin console, you will actually now see the square, which also has publisher and spy and all this. So I see that information here, and if I click on square, see the data type here, the color, the key, X, Y, and sheet size, the type it used. And since I have this one, I can actually show you what I mentioned before. If I bring up another shape here and I subscribe to square and I change something, that ownership here, which I know causes some problems, if I go back to the admin console, you will actually see here, oh, there's a problem here. So a little X here. You see the X here too. That means there's a problem with square. And it's with that shapes demo. And I can look at the match analysis, and it tells me that the ownership is a problem. There's one has shared ownership, the other one has exclusive ownership. What this basically means is I can configure it so that if I have multiple sources, do I want to receive data from each source and don't care where it's coming from, or do I just want one of them being the source for me and the other ones I ignore? So that's what exclusive ownership means versus shared ownership. So this is where the tool comes in pretty handy to detect those kind of things. And if I delete this, if I delete this one here, then you will see it's all now looking nice and clean again in my admin console. No questions, looks like.
None so far. I'm the only one asking questions here, but this is interesting. For a given data definition, can there be more than one key so that if either say color or some other property changed, we would get separate queues kept in the background for acquisition? Is that possible?
That is possible. The key can be one or multiple elements in your cluster. Yes.
Very cool. Thank you.
But the other thing is just outside LabVIEW, as I said, we have some tools here. So one of the tools we have is actually record and replay. I'll bring up my recording console here. By default, the way it is set, it will record everything I'm doing. So let me start recording here. It will complain that it will overwrite my file. That's okay. So this is actually now going to be recording everything that's going on the data bus on the main here. So let me go here and move this one a little bit around here. Maybe change the size, make the size smaller. Let's do another color, blue. Now we have it blue. Put it up there. Maybe you want to go this one, my knob here, and where do I have? I think maybe this one here too, because I'm still running this one here in the background. Okay, so let's do this as a recording. Let's stop our recording here. Okay, now I can actually come here. I can stop my VI. So this one isn't publishing any information anymore. I can even stop this one here and keep those applications up here. If I replay this, I haven't tried this yet. We'll see if it works. Yeah. So if you see, if I'm replaying it, we should now see this one moving around pretty soon, hopefully. Yep. Basically, I recorded whatever I did before. Now we will switch back to the blue pretty soon. We should also see then in a little while the tank down here moving, which I did at the end. So I'm basically now just replaying data that I recorded on the data bus before. So this is pretty helpful if you do some testing, and let's say you have a VI that runs on a CREO that reads live data from a system and publishes it out for another VI where you do some analytics. Now, you may not have access to the CREO or the actual system that generates all that data. So you can record that data and at a later point replay it and then still actually test your VI and your application with that pre-recorded data. And the way I'm replaying it here, I'm actually replaying it in a loop. So the moment it's done with the replay, I restart replaying, and I can even change the speed, so I can make the replay much faster than I had the recording, or I can even go at the slower speed if I want to. So now the whole replaying goes slower. So that's just one of the tools that we support. I can also actually export that recorded data. So if I go back here, we have a tool that is record convert. So I think this is that should be where where my recorded, not exactly the file that I'm using. Okay, so this is workspace. Oops. First 5.2. The config recurrent user config. Recording service. My first recording, so that's the one that I just recorded. And then I can actually output it to either XML, CSV, or HTML. There's some serialization option too. So I do CSV, and the output file, I'll do it on my desktop. I just record.csv. I run the recording. The conversion here finished. Okay, let me open this one here. you will see my topic. You have the timestamp here and the value that were recorded. Didn't do much with this at the beginning, then I started changing it. And then down here, you have the square with the timestamp and all the information. And then the red and the blue, all this. So you actually can even record that information. And that recording service doesn't necessarily have to run on the same machine as your application. As long as it's network, you have TCP IP connectivity, you will be able to record this and then later do either replay or analyze it. Now, since I have Excel open, we actually even have an add-in to Excel. Oops. Doesn't seem to work here. Okay. Save this. Try open Excel. Doesn't want to, okay. We actually have an integration with Excel, so every time you open Excel and you run that add-in, you can actually subscribe to information from the DDS data bus as well. I could subscribe to Square topics, or I could subscribe to the My Topic information as well.
So another quick question for you. Is there a utility which will go in the reverse direction? So for example, could I define in a CSV file something like the data we saw in the converted file and then have that injected into the system as a sort of simulation?
Yes. You can actually publish first in Excel, and then in an Excel file put in the data and send it out to basically see what's happening if you inject the message at some point. Yes, you can do that.
Very cool. Yeah, so we can effectively create simulation files and then have the data in, say, that simulation CSV file effectively, injected into the system and played out for us, which would be another way to, say, test a control algorithm. We saw here that we can replay live data, which is very useful. Something went wrong the first time through. You've saved that data. You can then replay it, and you can test how your application responds to that data after making changes. And then it sounds like maybe there's even a second way where we can define a sort of profile, if you will, of data, and then inject that data, say directly from CSV or something, into the system as though it had been recorded. Yeah?
Correct. Yes, you can do that. And
very cool.
That's a way of testing like your boundary condition, because we all write our application so that there's no wrong data being sent, but you still want to somehow test how it behaves if you get some wrong data in. And that's one way to do it.
Absolutely. Excellent.
I mean, the other thing we have as well is a routing service application. So routing service, it's an EXE that's completely XML configurable as well. And it allows you to split your DDS applications in a hierarchy of applications, for example. So you could have like 10, 15 applications locally that communicate to each other, and then use routing service as a gateway to the next level up, to a higher level set of applications, and you could configure it what all to forward to that higher level and what to keep just in the lower level. So that kind of reduces the amount of discovery traffic that needs to happen, because not all 15 applications at lower level really need to know where the higher level application is, or the higher level application probably doesn't care that there are 15 applications below. It just wants that data. So you can kind of almost kind of like a gateway, a concentrator that just represents whatever is the lower level to the upper level in a hierarchical system. It can also be used to bridge to other protocols. We've done some mapping from DDS to OPC, and there's actually some work going on in the OMG with the OPC forum to actually standardize on how to map DDS to OPC. And the other thing you can do is you can actually use it to connect to a cloud-based application. So I can see if I can get this up and running here. I still have my, I'll stop the recording here, or the replay, and I start to live data again. Blue around, yeah. Let's change it back to yellow. So let's see that thing here still moves around. So we have a recording service here, a routing service here, and I wrote a configuration here that actually just forwards everything to our cloud application on demo.rti.com. So if I open this one here, it will open my configuration file. So it basically goes on to TCP to rtidemo.com, to a specific port that it connects to, and I tell it down here, I basically tell it all the topics, all the types should be forwarded except some of the internal ones, because admin console uses some DDS topics as well for the communication. I don't need those to be forwarded. So that's what I configure down here. So if I have a web browser up here, I can go here to demo.rti.com. Okay, so now I have my web shapes demo here. So let me run this one here. That's the forwarding. So if I log in our shapes demo here, that's on demo, and you should be able to do the same thing as well on your end. Okay, you see I have a yellow here that's being published there, and if I go back to one here, if I move this around, you see I'm moving the yellow shape here on my web application that I'm running it's actually an Amazon cloud. It's on an Amazon server that it's running on. And on your end, you can actually go to the same web page, demo.rti.com, log in, create on this side here, create a subscriber, all this, and you should see the same information, and you should see me moving this around. The one thing the web app doesn't do is the size. So if I change the size, it doesn't do anything on the web application. So that's another thing you can use if you have to connect to a back end. So if you may have different locations where you do some data acquisition with your VIs, but then there's a back end office, maybe even in a different location, that wants to collect the information. So you can use this gateway or routing service application to basically push that information back to a back office application that can be a web application or can be something completely else than LabVIEW. Okay, I think probably all I have for today. I'm curious to hear any questions, actually.
You want more questions from me? I can throw them your way. So yeah, I just visited the site. Yeah.
So yeah, throw them my way.
Sure. Oh, go ahead. So yeah, I poked around at demo.rti.com, logged in. I see the demonstration live. It's very cool, and looks like it's using Canvas effectively to render the updates, the animations there, which is very cool. I was just going to ask you if you could say a bit more about the web integration here. Is there anything more you can tell us about this, and how, for example, one might very quickly get up and running doing something similar on their own site?
Yeah, the web integration we have here is still from our side an early access release, because the standard is still a little bit in flux on the DDS web APIs. But what it basically is running, it's an application that provides a RESTful API, and then I'm using the RESTful API to subscribe to topics and update that information there. So I could actually run the same thing locally on my machine. I don't know if we have time. I can try doing that. You're interested.
Sure, and we've got another question here. David Corney has asked, are there any limitations on the data types you can use? He said he joined a bit late, so he said, can I use variable size data such as strings, arrays, maybe variants? We saw, of course, clusters were possible, and presumably strings could live in there. But can you comment on the data types that are available?
Yes, so strings are supported, arrays are supported. The one thing on the data type, so if you have it installed, as I showed you the help, how to get to the document, if you don't have it installed, you can actually go to community.rti.com, go to documentation, and there is LabVIEW Toolkit. Now we can from there bring up the Getting Started guide. So you don't have to install it in order to get to the documentation. And then there is supported data types and corresponding IDLs. So here are the simple and complex data type that we support. So we support arrays of the following types. Here, basically all integers, float, and double. Clusters with arrays, with text and clusters.
Excellent. Yeah, and David just confirmed, saying excellent, thanks there in the chat, which maybe you see, Andre. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, so those are the data types. I mean, if you have any more questions, let me bring up my last slide here that I had in the presentation. So you can get more information on the toolkit on the Tools Network. There's a video out there on YouTube that we have. This is actually the link to the documentation. And then last but not least, down here is my email address. So I'm always here to answer questions as well.
Excellent. Well, this has been fantastic and fairly comprehensive. Thanks very much again, Andre. This is great. I guess maybe just some quick parting notes for everyone. Again, if you'd like to join us for future sessions, you can stay in touch with us by simply creating a login at Sixclear.com. That will get you on the list to receive all the Lunch and Learn sessions. And Andre, are you finished up? Should I steal back the presenter rights for the sort of closing remarks?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay, will do. Will do. Okay, and I believe I'm sharing here. Close those things. So again, here at Sixclear.com, the easiest way perhaps is to hover over Login and click Sign Up Now. That will get you on the list, and we'll keep you up to date on all the Lunch and Learn sessions. And also, this video, if perhaps you did come late, you can check it out at youtube.com/Sixclear. And here we have that. Show that indeed that short URL does the trick. You'll find it here along with many other videos that we have along the VI High line. So for those of you who follow us on VI High for tips and tricks, you'll also find here at our Sixclear YouTube page the Lunch and Learn sessions. So anyway, Andre, thank you very much again. This was fantastic, and thanks everyone for joining.